Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar with FME and Migration Center. As you can see, today's webinar title is How to Approach Complex Content Migration Projects to OpenText Content Server. But before we get started, there's just one slide of housekeeping we have to do. Please note that all attendees are muted during the whole session. If you have any questions during the presentation, before or after that, please type them into the question box in your GoToWebinar control panel, and I'll make sure to bring them up in a dedicated Q&A session at the end of our webinar. Please also note that we record the session and we will share it with you once it has been processed afterwards. Up next, let me introduce our speakers for today and then directly head over to get started. Our first presenter today is Florian, Director of FME Products at FME Germany. And in addition, we have Cosmin, a Migration Center consultant at FME Romania, who will then conduct our live demonstration. Now, without further ado, let me hand over to Florian to dive right into the webinar.
Cool, thank you, Mark, for the introduction of the housekeeping. So yeah, my name is Florian, so I'm running the products at FME, and today I'm here to help you to understand more about our product, our portfolio in terms of content migration to OpenText Content Server, and also this includes the XECM, for example, for SAP. And in the webinar today, we will give you really a brief overview about what we're providing in terms of migration. So we will start with some information about the FME itself, followed by an overview about our portfolio and Migration Center. So, and then we will talk shortly about one of our happy customers. And as Mark mentioned, then we will get into the live demo. So we will show you how Migration Center really works in a real scenario. And finally, we will give you some more information about our services around our product and the Q&A session at the end. So let me start with shortly with FME. So we are a trusted provider for solutions for helping customers within the digital transformation process. So we are mainly focused on the life science and industrial manufacturing industry, but we have also customers across all other industries. But life science and industrial manufacturing are our main focus industries at the moment. So we're providing services like consulting. We help customers with the conception work to whatever introduce new technologies. We do development and, of course, maintenance and providing products to our customers. We are mainly focused on the technologies like enterprise content management. This includes several platforms like OpenText, Content Server, Documentum, SharePoint, Fresco, and so on and so forth. So we are also helping customers with business intelligence, cloud computing. This includes DevOps, for example, or AWS, and so on. So we're providing solutions for social collaboration, and we also do customer software development. So FME itself was founded in 1995, headquartered in Germany. We are at the moment over 280 employees, so with about close to 30 million total revenue. And as I mentioned, headquarters in Germany. We have several offices across Germany, and we have subsidiaries in Romania and in the United States. So that's just a short overview about FME. So, and now let's talk a little bit about our migration portfolio. So usually we help customers to reduce cost and manage risk, increase the productivity, and fasten the go live of ECM applications. And we do that mostly with the delivery of products and services for high complex content migration and consolidation scenarios. But I will give you more details about the use cases we address and the challenges we address at our customer base. But we definitely believe that our customers are able to save 60% in cost and about 80% in project duration when using our technology and our professional service, if you compare that to other existing offerings in the market. So what kind of use cases we address? So first of all, we help customers with classic migration use cases. So that includes, for example, migrating content from a legacy OpenText version to the current version. So for example, from LiveLink to Content Suite, but also it includes the onboarding to the cloud. So kind of shift and lift from on-prem to off-prem systems. We have also customers to consolidate repositories to reduce the amount of data silos they have within the infrastructure, but also we help customers to consolidate technology. And this is, for example, one use cases we will show you in a little in our little case study, which we have prepared for today. And also we help customers to extend the platform within the enterprise. Typically, our customers start with 1 or 2 divisions and roll out a new enterprise or records management application within this 2 or 3 different departments. But we can also help customers easily to extend the platform by, for example, integrating file shares or let's say migrating content from third-party products. We help customers to replace legacy systems or just let's say out-of-life systems, but also we help them to retire or decommissioning different applications, for example, to an OpenText Content Server application. And we have many other use cases which we address. For example, test data management. We can help publishing documents from OpenText to multiple other systems. We help customers to reclassify content and metadata within an existing repository, and so on and so forth. So that's the main use cases we address. We believe there are many more out there, but that's all the use cases which we see, let's say, or which are common in our customer base. So, but the main question would be why you should use Migration Center for those use cases, and the answer is pretty simple. It's really an out-of-the-box product. It's really a platform because we provide over 180 different migration passes to multiple systems, and all this without additional programming or scripting effort. So it's really proven technology. It's used at about 500 customers worldwide and in thousands of projects. And we're almost 15 years on, more than 15 years on the market. Also, in terms of the capabilities we provide, we can help customers, for example, to migrate content without any downtime. So that means we do not interrupt the customer's business operations during the migration. We are fit for regulated systems. For example, in the life science industry, about 80% of the top 10 and close to 60% of the top 30 life science companies or pharmaceutical companies using our technology. It's made for large volume, so it doesn't matter how many documents or how many records you plan to migrate. So it's fully scalable. And we have also, together with our partner network, a global service presence. So that means we can help customers on nearly each continent, also with professional services. And this will be, of course, executed by our trusted partner landscape. So we have a really simple and flexible pricing model. It really fits to nearly every kind of, let's say, migration project. Doesn't matter if it's a one and done migration or you plan to use the product on a long scale. So we are very flexible here, and it's very simple to understand. And of course, that's where we're very proud of. So we are certified by a couple of leading ECM vendors. So in terms of the product itself, I just want to give you a short overview about the components of our product. So first of all, Migration Center consists of 3 main elements, and that's the Windows client. This, by the way, will be replaced by a web client within this year. But at the moment, it's still a Windows client, which is almost the control center for all the migration phases, jobs, processes, all the configurations you need to let's say get done before you start the migration. And we have a central database in the middle, which consists which includes the business logic and all performance critical processes like large, let's say, metadata transformation processes and stuff like that. So, and finally, we have a kind of a small server, which is called job server, which runs all the exports and scanning jobs, and of course, which is responsible for importing the documents into the target system. So as I mentioned, we provide about between 180 and 200 different migration passes. So that means we provide migration passes from several source systems to several target systems. So today we're here to speak about the OpenText Content Server and XCCM. So, and for those kind of projects, we're providing many different sources like the whole OpenText stack. That doesn't matter if it's Content Server, LiveLink, Documentum, with the different flavors like D2, DCM, XCP, eDocs, eRoom. So then the Microsoft world with Outlook and SharePoint, doesn't matter if it's on or off-prem, so 365 or online, it's also supported. We also support solutions to migrate legacy IBM FileNet applications or Lotus Notes or Domino databases. We provide connectors for Alfresco, for file shares. We have a generic SQL database connector, so we have different other interfaces like XML, Excel, CSV files, and we have a huge bunch of different, let's say, project solutions which can be used by our professional service organization in any kind of, let's say, service engagement with you as a customer. And in addition, it's also important to mention, so we have a framework around our product, so that means we can easily adapt our product to the customer needs. Usually we cover between 90 and 95% of all requirements, but sometimes there are really heavily, let's say, customized solution out there which needs a bit more attention in terms of, let's say, the capabilities. So, but this is pretty easy with our product because there is a clear API and framework which allows us to adapt our connectors or add new connectors to our connector landscape easily without big effort in terms of development. Yeah, and that's also very important to understand. This is especially also important to understand the demo later on. So we provide a predefined migration process, and it doesn't matter what kind of systems are involved on the source side, but also on the target side. So there are 6 main steps within every, let's say, migration project, and it starts always with the analyze and extraction phase. So that means we connect to the systems, we extract all the metadata information we need for the migration, and based on that information, we can start a kind of, let's say, review, just to see what kind of metadata exist in the source systems, and to use that information later on to, let's say, define the transformation and mapping routes to, let's say, migrate or to map the old, let's say, context of a document to the new context in the new system. So the second phase is the organization phase. You can imagine if you have millions of records, it's very difficult to handle all those records in one big batch and find a transformation model for all those records and documents at once. So for that reason, we introduced the organization phase, which allows our customers and the users to organize the migration in manageable sets. So you can define your sets by yourself. There are several or many different, let's say, selection criteria available based, for example, on the metadata of a document. So you can put, for example, documents from the marketing department together, or you can also put the documents which are, let's say, older than 5 years together in one batch or in one migration set, as we call them. Or you can just put the documents from one special format like PDF into one migration set, but you can also combine all those different kind of criteria to define your migration. So if you're done with this organizational phase, so the next phase would be to define the transformation and mapping logic. So, and everything here in that phase is just configuration. So there's no scripting, no programming effort needed. So as I mentioned, so everything is configurable, and the beauty here is that you can execute those transformation and mapping functions right away. So it's not necessary to import the documents into the target platform, into OpenText Content Server. So to see the results, you will see the results immediately within our product, and this allows us also to let's say introduce another phase which calls validate. So that means we are able to validate the documents and the metadata before we committing the data to the target platform, to OpenText Content Server. So, and we will detect some issues, some general issues, like, for example, as you can see here, there is a date field and the new metadata or the new value for the date is APC. So this will never fit into the target system, because the date is a date and not a string. So it's really easy. And this to fix that issue, you can just easily go into the correction loop and just correct this value by, for example, do it manually, or just simply change your transformation rules and set default values or system dates, or try to extract the date from some other values like folder passes or document names and things like that. So, and finally, if all the documents are validated, the last step will be the import. So, and this is again based on the migration sets. So you can import multiple sets, but you can also import just one single migration set into OpenText Content Server. But also you can mix things up. So that means if you, for example, want to migrate some documents into a total different repository within the OpenText Content Server, so you can do that easily. So you can just decide, okay, that migration set goes to this system and that migration set goes to that system. Some of our customers also archiving documents during the migration. So to reduce the amount of documents, they do that mainly for inactive or old documents, which are not necessary for the daily business operations anymore, and they migrate that, for example, to an enterprise archive. Yeah, so all these things can be mixed and run in parallel, and support any kind of, let's say, requirements within the migration project. Okay, so the outstanding capabilities, just to summarize it, so it's definitely our transformation engine, which is really flexible and powerful. So you can really map and transform any kind of metadata, objects, folder structures, ACLs, access rights, things like that. So it's really made for large volume. Doesn't matter if you have a small project or a really large project. Migration Center is fully scalable. So and it provides any kind of features for those large migrations as well. So as I mentioned, so we simulate everything within our product before we committing the data. This is also very helpful in migration projects. We have some capabilities, artificial intelligence capabilities, to auto-classify your content based on the documents itself, so the content of the document. So for example, if you have some documents sitting in the file share, so we can analyze the content and then extracting metadata from the content based on an artificial intelligence supervised learning algorithm. So yeah, the predefined migration approach, I mentioned that already. This is very, very helpful in migration projects, because it doesn't matter what kind of systems are involved. It's always the same process. So you learn just once the product, and then you can use it for nearly every kind of migrations within your enterprise. We provide the delta capabilities to reduce the downtime. So we are ready for sensitive environments. So as I mentioned, we have many customers in the life science or in, let's say, highly regulated industries. So banking, life science, nuclear power plant, things like that. So, and we have all features which needs to be, let's say, to create a kind of, let's say, validation report at the end and make sure that all the documents are migrated successfully without any, let's say, information losses or things like that. And we're also able to, let's say, migrate or in place upgrade your content. So that means if you decide to do not switch the, let's say, from one to another repository or one to another product, we're also able to upgrade your information and enhance your information within one existing content management system or OpenText Content Server. And finally, I mentioned that already. So we have this open connectivity architecture with our framework API, which allows you, partners, and us to adapt the product really easily without spending too much time in, let's say, customize the connectors and the behaviors of the connectors. Yeah, that's first of all everything about the product itself. Just really short and crisp overview. So whenever you have more questions, you can, of course, you can ask us within the Q&A session, but also do not hesitate to get in touch with us and ask us for one-by-one session to get, let's say, deeper into your requirements. So we are happy and glad to provide you a one-by-one session within the next weeks. So to really discuss your requirements and see how we can help you with our product and services in your specific project. So now let's talk a little bit about one of our customers. This is a customer. It's Auckland Council in New Zealand. That was managed by one of our service partners, Tenzing. So we migrated above 25 million documents and physical records from 6 different legacy systems into OpenText Content Server with extended ECM for SAP. So this migration was part of a critical transformation project to streamline the document and records management platform. And the main goals here were to consolidate the 6 legacy systems. That was one of the most important part, because you can imagine, so it's really cost intensive in terms of support and maintenance of those systems. And also there was another aspect, and this is the risk linked to the end of life technology. So some of those products are out of life, so that means they are not supported anymore. And also it was really important in that project to simplify the standardized document and records management system. So, and of course, within this project, it was also one of the goals to address functional constraints linked to the platform itself, and to reduce the operational cost of the whole document and records management infrastructure. So that was one of our customers, which we have successfully finished the project. It's one of our happy customers, but there are much more. So if you want to learn more about case studies and other customers, so you can just easily go to our website, migration-center.com. So there's a section with all our case studies and references. So please feel free to have a look to other projects which we have done in the past. So yeah, and this leads me now to the product itself. So let's have a short look into the product and how the product works. So for that, we prepared a showcase from SharePoint Online to OpenText Content Suite. So, and for that, I will hand over to Cosmin, who will give you a sneak peek into our product.
Thanks, Florian. One moment so I can change the presenter and share my screen. Oh, I think I shared the wrong one. No, screen 3. Okay, this should be fine. Okay, so hello everyone. We're going to take a look at a short demonstration of migrating from SharePoint to OpenText. We see here, I'm showing you the source objects which will migrate from SharePoint Online. So it's just a folder structure with several types of documents inside. And then we'll be moving this into a particular folder in our OpenText environment. So without any further ado, I will open Migration Center. So like Florian mentioned before, Migration Center is composed of 3 main components. So what you are seeing now is the Migration Center client interface. I am connected to one of our Oracle database instances where I have the Migration Center database component installed. And then I also have some job servers installed on different machines, and they are defined here. We'll be using these 2 ones for scanning and for importing. So like Florian said earlier, we have a predefined migration process. So starting with the analyze and export phase, we'll go to the scanners view. And here, in order to create a new scanner, we just click on the new button, and let's say we select SharePoint Online for our scanner type. We can give it a name, and then we select a job server where we want this to run. And you saw that after I selected the type of scanner, the list below of the list of parameters got populated with all the specific parameters of that scanner. So in order to save time, I already configured a SharePoint scanner for this demo. In order to start this SharePoint scanner that I have here, you just click on the Run button, and it will start a new run of this scanner. You can see here the status changed to running, and while this this scanner is running and processing the objects, we can take a look and see how many scan runs it has. Currently, there's only one. And let's also take a look at the specific parameters that I've configured for this scan run. So we have some basic stuff, such as the actual URL of the SharePoint online we want to scan, authentication for the site. We have some proxy options, and then we have basically a lot of specific features, so such as including or excluding different libraries and such. We also have the option to scan subsites from a specific site, or just the folder objects themselves. But what is important to keep in mind is this export location parameter, because the way the scanner works, or the general concept of scanning with Migration Center, is that the scanner will connect to the location we want to scan. It will extract all of the metadata of the documents and put them inside the Migration Center database, and the content will get exported to a location specified by this parameter. So in this case, it's a staging area, a file share, basically. And that's where the content will be exported. And that way, after we are done with the scan and we are ready to move on to the next phases of the migration, everything we want to migrate will be inside the Migration Center database and the staging area. So we are no longer connected to the source system. We don't need the source system to be connected for the rest of the migration. So we can see here the status of the scanner changed to finished. If we go to the history, we see we have 105 scanned objects. We can actually take a look and see exactly what these objects are. And we can see here each row represents an object from SharePoint, and each column will be exported metadata. There are a few internal Migration Center columns at the beginning, but the rest of afterwards is metadata extracted on the documents from SharePoint. It's important to note that version objects are exported individually. So we can see here, for example, this is actually a second version, and we keep the references between the versions. So that way, when we import, we're able to recreate entire version trees, and each object, each version will have its own content and metadata. And yeah, you can take a look at the metadata, see exactly the what was scanned. You can also export this to a CSV file, and then you can pass it on to someone else in your that is interested. Good. So once we are done with the scanning phase, we're ready to move on to the organize phase, and so we go on to the migration sets view. Again, to create a new migration set, we just click on the new button and we can specify a name for this migration set. We also need to specify a type, and this type will basically be your migration path. So in our case, this would be SharePoint Online to OpenText document. That would be the path that we want for this migration. Again, I will open one that I've already configured here. So we can select our object. So we have the name, the type, and then we go into the second tab, we have the file scan selection. And here we will see all the scan runs which correspond to our migration path, so SharePoint Online in this case, with the respective objects. So what we need to do is we select this scan for this migration set. And before locking these objects in the in this mix set, so it's exclusive to this one. We also have some filtering options. We can filter the objects with a simple exclusion filter by just by excluding different objects based on some of the values they have on the attributes, or we have a more advanced filtering option where we can create more rule-based filters, such as, for example, you can put the objects which have the modified date larger than a certain date. So you can be a bit more specific with that. But for the purpose of our migration, we'll just select all of our objects. And once we've selected our objects, we see in this mix sets grid that we have total objects 105 and unprocessed 105. And as we move on to the next phases of migrations, we'll see these objects move from the unprocessed to the transformed state, and then to the validated state, and eventually in the imported state. Or in case if there are any errors, we also have an error state. So let's move on to the next phase, which is the transformation rules. So we click on Edit Transformation Rules for this mixset. Excuse the slow loading. I'm running a bit through a VPN, so it's taking a while to actually connect to the database. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So here we have the transformation rules window. And without getting into too much details, the general concept of the transformation rule is that you define a transformation rule, which you can name however you like, but usually it will be named with the name of the target attribute, which you want the rule to associate with. And after that, you have an array of functions that you can use, which at their core are string manipulation functions to get source attributes or the values of source attributes, and using these functions you can manipulate them and transform them into a value that matches your requirement for your target system. So taking a look at some simple rules, so we have the original creation and modified dates here, and then we also have some custom metadata for some categories that we're going to set on the OpenText documents. And basically, I'm using some functions to extract metadata from the actual path of the files, as we will see earlier. And besides the general transformation rules, we also have some system attributes or system rules, which work in the same way, but they have a fixed name because they serve a specific purpose in the importer. So of course, we have a rule for setting the name of each object. We have a rule for setting the folder path for the parent folders. And here you can see I've also used some rules to change the path so that it matches where I wanted the objects to go in my OpenText system, since the source folder path was a bit different in SharePoint. And that's pretty much how transformation rules work. And once you are done with the transformation rules, you can apply transformation on this mixset, and we'll see the objects move to the transformed state. And then instead of viewing the source objects like we did earlier, we can take a look at the processed objects. So here we're going to see basically what the results of our transformation rules are. So we see here basically we have the where the name of the objects. We have the parent folders, which is quite different from the source value of the path. So if we take a look here, I also opened the source attribute. If we take a look at the path metadata, we can see it's slightly different from the one we have now. And these changes have been done with the transformation rules, just a few transformation rules to change the structure of the folders. And then we also have these 3 custom attributes, which will go on the category. And we basically extracted most of these values. So the company name and the contract number was extracted from the original path, folder path. So we basically took them from the folder names in the folder structure. Yeah, and basically you can take a look at the object, see exactly what the results are. If something doesn't look right, you can change the transformation rules, reset the objects, and transform them again until you're sure that the metadata looks how it's supposed to look. After we've done the transformation step, we can apply validation. And validation is an extra step that we apply to the objects based on the object type definition that we have here. So we have the default OpenText document object type. which is, I believe, it comes directly with the when you install Migration Center. And for here, we have only the basic system attributes for the creation date, modify date, and the description of objects. And we also assigned for the objects this bank customer category. And you can see here we have 3 attributes which are defined as strings, and you can also have different types, which can be a date attribute or a Boolean value. And what validation does is basically compare the generated transformation values with the object type definition. So you can catch a lot of, let's say, mistakes in the transformation rules or corner cases which may happen directly in Migration Center before actually even committing to OpenText. But once your objects are validated, we can take a look back. So this is where we will import our objects in this demo target here. So we're ready to move on to the importers view. Here, the importers window is very similar to the scanner window. You create a new importer the same way as the scanners. The only difference is, of course, you'll have different parameters, being a different adapter type. We have the URL, the connection details, and then, of course, specific features of this of the importer. But what is different from the scanners is this mix sets tab. And here you will see all of the mix sets which have validated objects. And of course, the path corresponds to the current importer. So it has to be to OpenText path, like we selected earlier. So we will select this mix set to be imported. And then just like we did with the scanners, we're going to hit run. And the import process is going to start to take place. So the importer will connect to the target system. It will start creating the objects, like I said earlier, including the versions if there are any, since the versions references are kept. We have an option in the importer, which I did not mention, and most of our importers have this, to auto-create the folder structure. So based on the parent folder system rule which we have in the mix set, if a folder is missing from, when you import a document, if a folder is missing from this folder structure it's supposed to have, the importer can create it automatically. Otherwise, you also have the option of migrating folders, specifically migrating the folder objects. So we can take a look at the history, and we can see the objects, the number of objects being processed, and you can see that in real time. And if we switch here and also refresh the page, we will see the folder structures getting created. If we compare this to the original one from SharePoint, you can see that it's slightly different. So we removed this value from the first level of the folders, and we've actually set those values on the bank customer category, which we assigned on the objects themselves. So we can take a look here. These are our objects. We can see we have the original modified date, which we kept, and we can also take a look at the categories, and we see we have assigned this bank customer category here, and we have extracted from the folder name, we extracted this, and we extracted the company name, also from the root folder path, and we also assigned a static value to this department metadata. And that's pretty much the whole process, the whole predefined method of migrating with Migration Center. As you can tell, the actual features themselves are in the are already taken care of in the scanners and importers, and most of the actual work you'll have to do will be just to make sure that all the metadata is moving correctly using the transformation rule system we have here on the mixsets. Yeah, we can see here the importer is finished, and all of the objects have been imported. And then we keep this in the mix sets. We keep them in the imported state to see a continuous let's say, overview of the migration status of what was migrated and what still needs to be migrated. And yeah, that's how you migrate to OpenText with Migration Center. Thank you. I will pass back to Florian now. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Cosme, for the quick demo. So as you saw, the migration is really a Swiss Army knife. So we just showed you the peak of the iceberg. So there are much more features which we can definitely show. So there are schedules within the product. There are different features to handle special, let's say, situations during the migration and so on and so forth. So it's very, very powerful. So, and if you want to learn more about the product and get much deeper into the details, so you have two options. So first of all, do not hesitate to get in touch with us. So we're happy to provide you a one-on-one session, as I mentioned, so and get much deeper and do a kind of deep dive into the product. But also you can try it by yourself. You can just go to our website and download a free evaluation copy, which is valid for 2 weeks. So which has the full, let's say, the full features available. So, and there are a couple of other, let's say, recorded webinars and deep dive webinars and demos on our YouTube channel. So feel free to just have a look to it. So if you need some more information. But again, so especially also due to the Corona time, so we're glad to help you remotely. So whenever you have any questions, so just let us know. We will provide you a time slot to meet you remotely in a one-on-one session. Okay, so let me switch back to the slide deck. Okay, so now you should see my screen again. So, and now let's talk a little bit about the services we provide around the product. I mean, a product is nice, so it's very powerful, it helps a lot. So, but also the experience about complex migration scenarios is very important during a migration project. And for that, we have our professional service organization. We have a dedicated team which helps our partners, our customers worldwide in that kind of, let's say, complex migration scenarios. And so there are a couple of, let's say, essential service elements we provide. It starts with the analyzing and planning service. We do proof of concepts. We help you during the with the project and the communication and change management. From time to time, we develop custom-specific connectors because some of our customers have some really specific applications. Some of those running some, let's say, custom applications which has been developed in the past. So we provide just simple, let's say, training for our product. We do the quality assurance and the validation documentation. We do monitoring and reporting during the migration project. And of course, we help you with installation and configuration services so to get Migration Center up and running. So, and our migration approach, so for our migration approach, we provide also a couple of different service, let's say, packages for you. So usually our approach starts with the source and content analysis. So that means we do a review of the existing source systems and the corresponding content and the context, metadata, and all the, let's say, related information like access rights and stuff like that, photo structures, records management, let's say, information, things like that. So, and the next step during a project is typically to define a classification and mapping definition. So that means a clear, let's say, a clear definition of how to map the, let's say, the target information to the source information or to the source objects. And this will then be one of the most important elements of the migration concept itself. So within the migration concept, we typically define with the customer the approach. Is it the Big Bang, whatever, Delta migration? Is it the department by department, product by product? So it's really depends on the customer situation and requirements. And within this concept, we also typically plan the migration execution. So this is followed by the migration preparation, and the custom and the product configuration. So, and once we are done with all the preparation work and the configuration of the product, we typically move over to several dry runs or test migrations. So to really test and verify the concept, the mapping definition, and the approach we choose. So, and during the dry run, it's a kind of correction loop included to, let's say, to upgrade, let's say, or to reconfigure or manipulate the transformation and all the configurations we have done in the first run, to adapt some changes which are required because, for example, we detect some problems during the migration. So once this, let's say, this dry runs are done and successful executed, so we move then to the productive migration, and finally we do the test in QA and the documentation of the whole migration project. So, and for this approach, we provide different packages for you. So you can just simply, from the bottom to the top, so just simply use Migration Center, just buy Migration Center and do everything else by yourself. So we also provide, as we call it, empowerment service. So that means that covers all the phases up to the migration preparation. So that includes the review of the source and target systems, consulting service in general, best practices, concept, proof of concepts, and the procedure definition. So, and we have another package, which is the implementation service. This is the configuration of the product, the project management, the execution of the migration dry runs and productive migrations, as well as all the reporting and, let's say, test and QA and documentation services. But last but not least, we also provide an end-to-end service, which includes everything. So that means the service plus the product. And this is available on a fixed price, time, material, or as a migration, as a kind of package for migration as a service. So that's all the elements you can choose for this migration approach. So, and it's really up to you how, let's say, deep you want to engage with the professional service. So again, you can also just buy simply the product and let's say, have some training and do the whole migration by yourself. Okay, yeah, that's almost everything we have for today. So now I will hand over back to Mark. Mark will give you some more information about where you can find information and what's next. So thanks a lot, and yeah, I will hand over to Mark now.
Okay, thank you both Florian and Cosmin for the presentation and the demo. We are almost at our Q&A session, but before that, let me give you a quick slide of information sources. We offer 3 different websites. 2 of them are for our company, fme.de for the German version, fme-us.com for the US American version, and mainly, and that's our focus, migration-center.com. That's the website for the product Florian and Cosmin just talked about. And on there, Florian mentioned it already, you find more in-depth product features, different case studies, success stories from former customers, our service portfolio Florian just talked about, and of course, some recorded webinars, a content migration blog, which is very interesting, but most importantly, our free evaluation copy with which you can try out Migration Center for a 14-day period. And this webinar today was the start of a webinar series we are conducting currently. And as you can see, we have 3 more upcoming webinars. They all evolve around the topic of content migration, of course, but each of them is focused on a different platform. So on June 16th, which would be the next webinar, we have a webinar focusing on Viva Vault. Then on June 25th, we have one that is focusing totally around Microsoft SharePoint, on-premise as well as online. And then the last webinar of the webinar series, which is focused on OpenText Documentum, will take place on June 30th this year. And if you want to register for those webinars, just go to our website, migration-center.com, which I have placed in the chat right now. And we have a pretty prominent news section on there right beneath the header. And there you find the possibility to register then. Great. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you being here. Thanks again for joining us today, and we will see you next time. And always remember, it's FME and Migration Center you'd love to work with. Thank you very much.